What is up, everybody? We are back with our quarterback rankings for the redraft season, only 2023, not Dynasty. We already went through quarterbacks 24 through 17. We'll repeat those in just a second. And today we're looking at QB 16 through 9, our consensus rankings. Dad, well, as always, I'm joined by my father, Jeff. How's it going, Dad? How are the Tigers doing?
Oh, the Tigers?
Yeah.
Tigers are about 3 games under 500, which isn't bad here in mid-May. They're playing Washington Nationals, who have a worse record, so hopefully they can kind of, win that series. That's what I always look for. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4. So,
yeah.
But they need
some better than my Padres.
Yeah. At least they're cheaper.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, we're here again. We're ranking our top 24 quarterbacks. We did 24 to kind of cover all bases. 12-team leagues, 2 quarterbacks, super flex. That should cover all of you. If you're in deeper leagues, well, we can only do so much. And we're going to start with number 16 today. But before we do that, I'm just going to repeat what our consensus 24 through 17 are. We had Bryce Young coming in at 24. Jordan Love and Brock Purdy were tied 23-22. Then we had Derek Carr at 21, Matthew Stafford at 20, Geno Smith at 19, and then Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins were tied 18-17. Those were our first 8 guys that didn't make the list, or guys like Garoppolo, Tannehill, Pickett, Mac Jones. These are some guys that didn't make the list. And then we kind of talked about it last video if you want to check it out in more detail. But we said, any one of these in the top 24 through 17 that can kind of make a major jump into like the top 12 or so, we both agreed Geno Smith is probably that guy. So we'll get right into it with number 16, and that is Jared Goff. I had him. We both had him at 17th overall, so he falls in as our 16th rated QB. Dad, start us off with your Lions quarterback, Jared Goff. What do you expect from him this year?
First off, he's going to have to get all his points via his arm. So we know there's no running ability. Last year, he had a great year, 4,400 yards, 29 touchdowns. This year, we're hoping a repeat, pretty much in that mid 4,000 yards and hopefully about 30 touchdowns. His interceptions were way down last year. He's on a streak of over like 325 straight passes without a interception. And so here's somebody though on our list. He could move up or down really easy here. So we got Cousins at 17. Could you interchange Goff and Cousins? Sure you could. But we got him at 16. We're thinking, he's going to still be riding high from last year. He has the same offensive coordinator. He has good running backs, good wide receivers. So good offensive line. There's no reason why, barring injury, of course, that we could see some good stuff out of Jared Goff.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would maybe potentially have him like a couple ticks higher if Jameson Williams was going to be there the whole season, just because I think he's going to be that one receiver. He's the one receiver on that team that can take a screen pass 80 yards and score a touchdown like a Jamar Chase, or a slant pass, takes a slant pass for 60 yards for a touchdown, like just big play type of receiver. And they don't really have that without him. St. Brown's a good player, but he's a possession guy. You got like a Josh Reynolds can catch a bomb or two, but he's not like Jameson Williams is a step above. So
Definitely.
and I wish he was there. He's not even going to be able to practice the first 6 weeks, which sucks. So that's half the fantasy season, the regular season, that he's not going to have an impact. So, but yeah, with Cousins, he had a great year, or not Cousins, Goff. He had a great year last year, and I can kind of see the same repeat. I think an interesting. I forget exactly what the number was, but it was something ridiculous. Like he had 8 passes that were tackled at the 1, or it was like something like 8 or 10. It was a crazy high number where they were tackled at the 1, and only 2 of them turned into Goff passing touchdowns, and like 8 of them turned into Jamal Williams 1-yard touchdown runs.
Yeah,
so
who had 17 rushing touchdowns or something last year.
So even if just like 3 more of those turn into touchdowns, like passing touchdowns, like he has a 32, 33 passing touchdown season, and his numbers look way better. And he jumps.
Definitely looks better, yes.
And he jumps a bunch of guys, right? I don't know why it's not working. My Fantasy Pros is not working at the moment. Okay, it doesn't want to work right now. But he guaranteed he jumps. He gets 12, 16 more points, and he jumps a couple guys from where he was. Here we go. Yeah, he would jump Daniel Jones and probably Trevor Lawrence and maybe even Kirk Cousins, right? So, is that going to happen again? Not necessarily, but like you said, he can move up a few. He can move down a few. I agree with that. Next guy we have, number 15. Our second rookie on the list is Anthony Richardson, QB 15. This is kind of assuming he's going to start all year. Dad, what do we expect? Anthony Richardson, he starts 17 games. What are you expecting? I guess from the rushing point of view. I know we're not expecting too much from passing, maybe like 3,000 yards and like 15 passing touchdowns. But what do you expect from his rushing numbers?
500 yards.
Seems low.
500 to 600 yards. I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. Is he going to have Jalen Hurts rushing numbers? I don't think he's that polished of a quarterback yet. And the nice thing, we were talking offline, the head coach for the Colts was Jalen Hurts' offensive coordinator last year. So he's definitely going to know how to use them and probably put him in those situations. But, I'm going to go conservative and say 500-600 yards. Passing, what is he going to do with passing? I'd be surprised if he had more than 15 touchdowns, in passing. So, and maybe, if he had 2,500 yards, that would be marvelous. So 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, throwing 600 yards, rushing with maybe half a dozen touchdowns. That's I think what we're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to be more optimistic about his rushing. 500 for me is like 500 yards rushing is not. It's good. It's really good, but you still need to be a 4,000-yard passer and 20-plus touchdowns in order to be fantasy. That's only 30 yards rushing a game, 500 yards rushing. I think he's going to be closer to like a 40, 50 yards rushing a game type of guy and get into like that 800 rushing. And that's where it starts becoming, okay, you can throw for 3,300 yards, but you're rushing for 800 yards. And now you become a good fantasy quarterback. I'm just kind of looking at guys, running quarterback guys like a Cam Newton, Robert Griffin, their rookie years and what they were rushing for. Jalen Hurts in 2021, they all ran for 700-800 yards. These guys, even I don't even know Justin Fields. I know he had a monster year rushing last year, but his first year in 10 games started, he ran for 4,200 420 yards, 42 per game. So I kind of expect that 40 to 50 per game from him rather than that, what did I say, 30 yards rushing a game. And so that's why I have him 15th personally. If he is only going to rush for 15, I'd drop him. I'd have Goff over him. I'd have Cousins over him, probably Geno over him. But yeah, give me that 800 yards rushing. He's a big quarterback. I think around the goal line, he can get some easy touchdowns like a Hurts did or a Cam Newton did. So I'm looking forward to it. He's the guy I'm going to be targeting in redraft and trying to pair him with a Carr, a Stafford, a Geno, a Cousins. Just to have that safer quarterback as my QB2 with the potential of Anthony Richardson. So I don't know if you're going to target him in redraft, Dad, or if you like him this year in redraft as a one quarterback.
I'm kind of a chicken with these running quarterbacks. I'd like to stick with guys like Burrow and Herbert and Mahomes and stuff like that. So, I've warmed up to guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and things like that. If we start, I think I know we're going to talk about him, but I think Daniel Jones is his numbers are pretty good. But anyway, we'll stick with Richardson. So,
yeah. I guess the only thing I'm hesitant. We'll talk about Burrow, and you had him significantly higher than I did, and I think the issue with those type of quarterbacks is, and we saw it with Justin Herbert last year. If they can easily kind of have a little bit of a down year, especially with touchdown passes, just because what if you have an Eckler on your team that rushes for 12 touchdowns, or just the overall offense doesn't click. So we saw it with Herbert last year where he kind of had a mediocre year because he didn't throw for 40 touchdowns, because you're not rushing, you're going to have a kind of a mediocre year. And that's my fear with like putting guys like Burrow and Herbert in like the top 3 or 4, but we'll talk about that later. Our next guy is Aaron Rodgers. I think we both had him ranked 14th. We did. Aaron Rodgers comes in at 14. I guess we expect a little bit of a resurgence here. Dad, are you expecting that from Rodgers this year? Are you expecting like a 2021 or 2022, 2020 Rodgers type of year?
I don't think he's going to be in the 40 touchdown range. So I think he's, you could maybe think 30 touchdowns, and I think the Jets might have a decent running game and things like that. So I think this is appropriate, where he sits and stuff like that. So the guy's pushing 40 years old too. You did see him take a little bit of a backwards turn last year, in his last year in Green Bay, but we'll see if he's revitalized with the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
But, so what are we thinking? 2021, he was an MVP. 2020, he was an MVP. And I don't think he's going to be at those numbers. So,
yeah, it's 2020 numbers were ridiculous. 4,300 yards passing and 48 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Like, I don't expect that. I can see closer to 2021 though, 4,137 touchdowns. He's not going to throw a lot of interceptions. Last year he threw 12. That was more than the last, from 2019 to 2021 combined. So he's always been a low interception guy. Just looking at his career numbers, 475 total passing touchdowns in his career, 105 interceptions. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But I can see him getting, 35 touchdowns and 4,200 yards, right? And I think, that would put him if he does that in 2021, his numbers, he was QB6 and he averaged 21 points a game. I think I can see that. Maybe not QB6, but, averaging 20, 21 points a game. He goes to a team where their defense is really good. They have a really good running back room with Brees Hall, Michael Carter, Abanikanda. You have a good, even the guy Zonovan Knight, who came in last year and looked decent for a couple games. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Corey Davis. You have Alan Lazard. You have Mecole Hardman. You have Randall Cobb, right? You have Tyler Conklin at tight end. Like, you have a good receiving core, like, headed by Garrett Wilson, which I think was a big thing for Rodgers last year. Like, a lot of times there was over half the year, it was like Lazard or Romeo Doubs was his best wide receiver.
Yeah.
And then Garrett Wilson had a good run there, and I think you saw him play a little bit better. But I think Christian Watson, but I think Garrett Wilson's a step above. So.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson should be his Devontae Adams in Green Bay, and so we're expecting big things there. So
I agree. Our next guy is Tua Tagovailoa, coming in at number 13. Just double checking. Yes, we both had him at 13. Tua, Dad, what are you expecting from Tua this year?
Well, we seen when he was healthy, he was playing, under the new coach, Mike McDaniel's offense. He looked pretty good. Of course, he's got 2 stud wide receivers and had a decent running game. And I think as long as he's healthy, that's kind of with everybody, that we should see a repeat of what he was doing last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I know seems like he missed half the season, but I know it wasn't half. It was at least a third or a quarter of the season.
He missed 4 games. He was knocked out pretty early in week 4. He only had 14 passing attempts. So, he missed like 4.5 games or over 4 games. But if you do extrapolate his numbers a little bit, he finished with 3,550 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, playing in 13 games. If you extrapolate that, it's like 4,600 passing yards and 33 touchdowns, would have been his numbers if he kind of didn't miss any time.
Oh, big numbers.
Really good numbers. He's not going to give you much rushing. He's never had more than 130 yards rushing in a season. He's just not that type of quarterback. But a lot of this has to do with he's throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devin or Devon, I forget the correct pronunciation. Devon A-Chain. Mostert and Wilson still there. So he has those receivers are a big reason why he's going to put up those numbers, I think. He led the league in touchdown percentage, yards per attempt, air yards, yards gained per pass completion. His QB rating led the NFL. He led the NFL in a lot of, these advanced statistics because of those receivers. So, if he stays healthy, I see a 4,500 30 low to mid 30 touchdown year, and he's kind of a low interception type of guy too. So I like Tua this year. I don't think, obviously it's scary with the concussion stuff, but like I don't know if it's necessary. It's not like maybe like a soft tissue or a knee injury where, like, I don't know if it's going to affect his play too much the beginning of the year, unless it's kind of mentally, in his head type of thing. So but yeah, I like Tua definitely as a solid top 12 quarterback. So moving on, we have a tie. We have Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott. We'll start with Daniel Jones. Dad, you're slightly higher. I mean, I have him at 12. You have him at 11. I have Dak at 11. Daniel Jones at 12. So
I became a Daniel Jones fan last year, and obviously his passing ability is not. It's not the best. It's okay,
Mhm.
He makes up for it with his running game and stuff like that. I can easily see 700 yards from this guy, and his passing numbers. I don't think they're going to be wonderful, but I don't think they're going to be. They're going to be in maybe the low 20s or something like that. So yardage, 32, 3,300 yards or something. So we'll see. We'll see if he can have a repeat of last year. He's got big money now, big
Mhm.
contract. So good coach. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with all that. And the one thing that makes me slightly hesitant on Daniel Jones is like we've seen, okay, 4 years now, he's not a very talented passer. He's his best year was last year with 3,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. Yeah, I know he had 24 passing touchdowns in 2019, but um, so he's gonna have to do it with his legs. Whereas, like, yeah, you can make that case for Richardson, Fields, those type of guys, but I think those guys can run for 1,000+ yards. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be that type of rusher. Yeah, he'll get 700 yards. I think they'll continue to run the ball with him. Um, but I wish you could kind of bank on like closer to 4,000 or high 3,000 yards passing and like low to mid 20 touchdowns. So I don't know. I have him ranked 12th. It's not like I hate the guy. I have him ranked as a top 12 quarterback. So, but I put the next guy over him a little bit, Dak Prescott, just because we've seen a higher range. Like even in just 2021, we saw he had 4,450 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns. We've seen that from him. We've seen 30 from him twice now in his career. Even in 2020, he was starting off on fire before he snapped his ankle. Last year it was a down year. He did miss 5 games. But he wasn't throwing for as many. I think it was his lowest yards per game since 2018. He was only throwing 238.3 yards a game. So if you put that over 17, that's 4,050 yards. 23 touchdowns in 12 games is decent. Now you're looking at, again, 32 and a half passing touchdowns. So I just think with Dak, there's it's a little safer, I guess. Like we've seen it. He's probably going to get 4,300 passing yards and low 30s in the touchdowns if he plays the whole year. He doesn't do too much as a rusher. Ever since he broke his ankle, he doesn't do a whole lot. But it's not like he does nothing either. Just quickly doing the math here, he'll give you 15. He averaged 15 rushing yards a game last year, which is going to give you, I could see him running for 300 yards. So I guess the difference between his rushing and Daniel Jones is about 400 yards, right? So that's 40 fantasy points. I think he can make that up with his total touchdowns. I think he can throw 10 more touchdowns. That's 10 touchdowns, right? I think he can throw more than 10 touchdowns than Daniel Jones. I guess that's kind of my whole logic. And that's not even adding in that he probably is going to have 400 or 500 more passing yards. So that's kind of why I put Dak over Daniel Jones. Dad, how are you feeling about Dak
Well,
in 2023?
there was a big coaching change in Dallas. Offensive coordinator went to the Chargers. The Mike McCarthy, he said he was going to take over. They said they're kind of making a big deal about it in the offseason that he wants to slow the game down. He wants to run more. Even though Tony Pollard got hurt, so he's still got to come back. So so what does that mean for Dak? So I think slight diminished numbers doesn't mean he doesn't have the ability, to have ridiculous passing numbers and things like that. Seems like they have all the pieces and parts on the offense. Just has to be executed. But I think he kind of fits exactly right where he's at. You know, um, I
Yeah,
could, I think I said 12, but
yeah. I mean, we're not far off. You're
no, we're
12 and
not.
11, so yeah. The only reason I was just kind of explaining why I put him over Daniel Jones. Like again, I think Daniel Jones has about 400 to 500 more rushing yards from him than Dak. So that's 40, 50 points. But I think Dak can make that up with more touchdowns. And then obviously with passing yards. Yeah, it's interesting about the whole we're going to run the ball more. It's not like the Dallas didn't run the ball. They were one of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They were sixth in attempts, in rushing attempts last year. They ran the ball 531 times. So it's not like they have a huge room for an improvement. They were basically almost at 50%. They threw the ball 556 times, ran the ball 531 times. So they were slightly under 50% rushing the ball. So that's one of the highest in the league. So I don't know. Are they really going to run that much more? I don't see it necessarily. So we'll see what they do. But we like Dak and Daniel Jones. Next guy, we have two more on the list before we finish this up. We'll try and get it done in about the next 5 minutes or so. But we have Kyler Murray coming in at 10, assuming he plays the whole year. So Kyler Murray, we've seen him be a top-notch fantasy quarterback. I believe in 2020 it was when he was that. I'm going to sneeze real quick. Didn't sneeze there. So, but we've seen Kyler be a legit. He was QB2 in 2020. He was it looks like QB 7 or 8 in 2019, and then he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. I mean, 2021 he played 14 games. Let's see where he was there. He was in the top 10. So last year couldn't stay healthy. I think the biggest concern with him is he going to run as much as he has in the past? And that's concerning a little bit because he ran for 550 yards in 2019, 820 in 2020, 423, 418 last year. I think I'm still going to pencil Kyler in for about 500 to 600 rushing yards if he's healthy for the whole year. And he's a talented passer. So I think the change of the coaches, a new offense in there, I think they can really tap into Kyler. The biggest thing is he going to be healthy the whole year? So, Dad, what are you thinking about Kyler? I know you're not the biggest Kyler fan.
No, I'm not. And he had some good years, but he didn't do it. He didn't do it the whole 17 game schedule.
Well, he did in 2019 and 2020. He played both a full season both those years.
But
Again, was like
the team kind of dropped off a little bit, and part of that was his play a little bit, and there's rumors, that Arizona. This is around the draft time. Arizona Cardinals have the worst roster in the NFL, and it's like, wow, those are big things to say, and that was one of the draft analysts from the NFL Network said that, and it's like, geez. So, he tore his ACL late in the year last year, and it's hard to ignore though his fantasy ability. You have to. This is one of the guys you got to really separate, fantasy from real life and stuff like that. So, 500 yards, yeah, 500-600 yards. I could see it, and he can throw the ball. We'll see. we'll see how the whole offense does in general. DeAndre Hopkins and James Conner, and kind of a mishmash of offensive linemen, and see what happens.
Yeah, it is the biggest concern is like, even if he starts the year, is he going to be really running that much? But I think the reason why I still have him at 10 is because we have seen him be like he's not like a guy that like he's not like a Daniel Jones who like that, he needs the rushing in order to be productive or else he's just irrelevant. Like he still threw, like for example, 2020, he threw for almost 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns. Yeah, those are good numbers, especially pairing that with his rushing. But if his rushing ticks down, then you expect his passing to tick up. So we've seen him capable of being a 4,000 yard passer, a 25, 26 touchdown guy. His rushing goes down a bit, so maybe he becomes a 4,400 yard, closer to 30 touchdown passer. So the biggest thing, he's going to fall because it is probably unlikely that he starts the whole year, but we just don't know that yet. So I think what we're going to do, Dad, is we're actually going to finish up here. We're not going to get to our last guy just because he's actually tied with a couple guys that are in the top 8. And that is, Trevor Lawrence is the next on the list. Spoiler.
Sounds good.
But we'll talk about him in the next video. So we'll actually be talking about 9 guys in the next video. Yeah. Any last words, Dad, with any parting words before we finish up?
No, nothing really intelligent to say anymore. So
okay. We are 17 subscribers away from 200. If you are new and watching this video, please subscribe. We'll be putting out several videos a week during the off season. During the season, we'll maybe try and ramp it up if we can and things like that. So we'll be here for you guys, and we appreciate it if you watch the whole video.